Lions began in 1917 when Melvin Jones, a 38-year-old Chicago business leader, asked a simple and world-changing question. What if people put their talents to work improving their communities? Now, almost 100 years later, Lions is the world's largest service club organisation with close to 1.35 million members. Lions went international 3 years later in 1920 with the founding of a club in Canada, and in 1963 it was Greymouth's turn, when an inaugural meeting was held to discuss forming a club on the 24th of July at the Duke of Edinburgh Hotel. Dr. Barry Dallas was elected first president, and Bernie Guerin became the club's first secretary, and remains today the last surviving original charter member. On the 21st of September the club was officially formed, and 3 months later, on December the 14th, well-known Christchurch music personality Sedley Wells came and presented the club charter to President Barry Dallas. We were the 74th club to be chartered in New Zealand. Service projects have always been a pillar of Lions clubs, and Greymouth has been no exception. Not long after being formed, Greymouth Lions combined with JCs and Rotary, the first of many times, to launch an appeal to raise £1,700 for the purchase of the Presbyterian Church Sunday School rooms on Milton Road. That was quite a sum in those days. The rooms were to be converted into use for an occupational group and later a hostel for the West Coast branch of the Intellectually Handicapped Children's Society. And so began a proud tradition of community projects which continues to this day. Greymouth Lions' second project, inspired by the charitable work of famous New Zealand sportsman Murray Halberg, was to run a golf tournament locally, from which they managed to raise £100. These funds were used to establish a fund which was to be used to help those in the district in need of assistance, something that continues to this day. Tragedy can strike at any time, and more often than not, Lions is one of those who step into the breach to help. One of the first such instances of this happening for Greymouth Lions was back in 1963, when the club combined with other local organisations to raise funds from a benefit sports day for the widow of local axeman Mike Antonovich. And then again in 1966, when the club launched an appeal for the widow and 11-year-old son of Hungarian Istvan Straczynski, who was tragically killed in a tractor accident at Redjacks. Money came in from public donations, but it was also supplemented by £100 raised from a gold nugget raffle and £400 from a race meet at Ngāhere. The money raised was used to establish the support fund for the benefit of Mrs. Straczynski and her son. The latest response of Lions to tragedy was the Pike River disaster, where not only did members help out on the day of the memorial service at the Omoto Raceway and in other areas, but they also established a fund to support those in the community affected by the disaster, including the establishing of the Greymouth Lions Pike River Memorial Scholarship to support Grey District youth advancing to tertiary education. The building of the Civic Centre in Alexander Street was probably the largest community project ever undertaken in Greymouth. Originally a theatre was also planned to be built in Puketahi Street, but the cost proved too prohibitive and the theatre did not go ahead. The Civic Centre has served our sporting community well over nearly 50 years. It was an exciting project for sports bodies such as badminton and basketball, and later on indoor soccer and volleyball, and we even have a climbing wall now. Prior to the building of the Civic Centre, the facilities available for sports groups were very limited and outdated. The contribution by the Lions Club was more in the form of being part of a steering committee, but members also contributed large amounts of time and effort over a 4-year period and running raffles and other fundraising ventures. The Civic Centre was finally opened in 1968 before a large crowd. Fittingly, the town's mayor was then Dr. Barry Dallas, the first president of the club. How did they get away with it? An elephant race along Mackey Street probably wasn't the most safest of events, but then again, there was no OSH in those days. It happened because members of Greymouth Lions had flair. They had a sense of humour and an uncanny ability to break the rules just once in a while. Joe Hoare, ridden by our own Rob Miller, won by a trunk and a half. Runner-up was Pat Naylor, and third was Mr. Merthyr, a local radio station announcer. The crowds were incredibly appreciative and donated £70 towards the Strongman Disaster Fund. The scope and range of projects that Lions took on over the years was quite large, and some kept on reoccurring, like the donation of televisions to the Greymouth hospital wards. Much appreciated by staff and patients alike. Black and white was superseded by colour, and who knows, maybe our next project will be an earthquake-proof flat panel plasma TV for yet another hospital ward. Part of the Lions' ideal is to foster the development of new clubs, and Greymouth was no exception. Not too long after it was chartered, Greymouth Lions sponsored two other coast clubs, with South Westland being chartered in 1967 and Westport in 1968. Westport became the 164th New Zealand Lions club to be formed. At the heart of the Lions' creed is the desire to serve the community, and this is demonstrated in Lions' involvement within the Greymouth community in so many diverse ways. For Greymouth Lions, this has included the birthright picnics at Punakaiki, financial support for Camp Quality for children suffering from cancer, child sponsorship, supporting youth and overseas exchanges, the annual West Coast Sports Person of the Year Award, and in so many other many ways. Conventions are a big part of Lions, and in 1969 Greymouth hosted the 5th convention for the 202D district in Greymouth. There were over 250 Lions and their wives in attendance. Highlights were the flag ceremony and the rededication service in the St James Theatre, ably supported by the Greymouth Municipal Band. Then in 1983 Greymouth hosted the 202E district convention at the Regent Theatre, and in 2012 we did so again for a second time. Change of officers nights are another key part of the life of a Lions club, where the president steps aside to allow for everyone else to take one step up and assume a larger level of responsibility. They're also a very social time with spouses and partners in attendance, and a good measure of humour thrown in from the tail twister. Interestingly, some Lions just don't seem to age over the years. Lions' support of the young people of Greymouth was soon seen again in the development of a new skateboarding facility at McKinley Park. It was a welcome development for the town and was soon christened Andy's Skateboard Park as a tribute to the input of Lion Andy Mooney. It meant countless hours of voluntary labour and cost just $800 in materials. It encouraged the young people of the town to avoid the dangerous practice of using footpaths for skateboarding, and the new half-pipe construction is going to be ideal for the development of young people in the sport. At the heart of Lions fundraising lies the ubiquitous raffle, and many Lions have lost count of the number of hours spent behind raffle tables. Keenly aware of the plight of poor Lions in unsettled weather, local motor body builders Burrell and Carter designed and built a Rolls-Royce of raffle tables, complete with Perspex windshields. We see here Eric Belcher and Jim Keenan, local Lions, trying it out for size. In 1991, the club got involved with another building project. This time it was a shelter for the Anzac Park netball courts. This was erected in 1991 and situated on the southern side of the courts. It was built as a joint effort with the West Coast Netball Association, and the shelter today still provides excellent protection from the wind and the rain. The total cost of the project was around $7,000, and the club contributed much of this. Another project which ably demonstrates the way in which Lions contributes to the community was the restoration of the Old Town clock. In 1945 the clock was dismantled because of earthquake fears, and it wasn't until 1992, 47 years later, that the clock was up and ticking again. And it was made so because of the hard work of a Mr. Noel Price and the work of both Lions Paikiki, now Riverside, and the Rotary clubs. Hours and hours of work went into restoring the clock and getting it working again and erecting it back on the flood wall. Total cost of the project was around $60,000, and it is a wonderful addition to our town. In the early days of Lions, it was always Lions and their wives, and it took 34 years before a woman was to become a club member in 1997. Helen Cowan was the first woman to become a Lions member in Greymouth, but she certainly wasn't the last. And in 2010, Sue Nielsen became Greymouth Lions' first woman president. Our next woman president will at this stage be Fran Cowan in 2015. Lions will make up any excuse to celebrate and enjoy a good night out. And just as we're celebrating 50 years tonight, it was only 10 years ago that we celebrated 40 years. And hard at work, in this picture on screen you can see Dave Hyde preparing banners for the 40th anniversary of Greymouth Lions. The last two projects that you can see up on the screen now are interconnected. The first is the annual participation of the Lions Club with the Waitangi Day Community Picnic. This is a wonderful community event where we feed up to 1,000 to 1,500 people with a free barbecue and activities in the park, and Lions is responsible for cooking the barbecue. It's a wonderful day out and enjoyed by hundreds and hundreds of people within our community. Related to that, of course, is the building of the stage in Dixon Park. We had a wonderful stage on a bit of an angle though, and it was a great place for performances, but it wasn't very good if it started to rain, and so the Lions Club took on board the project of levelling the stage, providing a sound cover and more power to the area, and this was completed just last year. It's a wonderful addition to the park and makes it an all-weather, all-year-round venue. They say rust never sleeps, and neither do Lions, and while this might have been the last project we did, there are certainly many, many more to come. It's been a great 50 years.